You're listening to Broncos for Breakfast with Nick Kendell and Scott Kennedy. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com for all things Broncos. Good morning, Broncos country.
Spinning wheels, muting phones, you know, the usual.
All the proper stuff. Dog rolling around on the crate behind me, of course. Or next to me. We got one more wheel, and welcome in, guys, to another episode of Broncos for Breakfast every single Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Always have to...
PM, man.
AM.
Get some coffee.
Oh my God.
Nick's up early. Nick, get your coffee going.
8 a.m. Mountain Time, 8 o'clock, or 800 military time, if we're going to go down that path. And Broncos for Breakfast. Welcome in. And I am joined by my good friend and co-host, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how are you doing this fine morning, this AM?
I'm doing good. It's one of those Thursdays. It feels like it should have been a Friday 2 days ago. So now that we're actually getting towards the end of the week, it feels right.
Yes.
It's right now is a fun time to be covering Denver.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's when you've got a good roster and a ton of money, you're linked with everything. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a lot of fun, you know, and you got two marquee names out there, you know, some good, some bad. You know, when top quarterbacks are being linked with your team, there's red flags there. What are they? Some are worse than others, but it's been a fun, you know, fun for me anyway. Might not be fun for everybody else watching, going, I'm tired of this. Let's do something already. But I've had fun with it. Yeah,
right. I mean, it's good content, and as content creators, I guess we are thankful for that. But man, I'm also really excited about new football, new football that we can talk about as well. Because at some point in the offseason, you kind of just get in a rut. Never really got there, but I've seen that before. So guys, you can follow us on Twitter. Follow myself, Nick Kendell, at Nick Kendell MHH, and you can follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. Both dropping a lot. Probably on Twitter a little bit too much for my liking, but it's too fun. I'm addicted. What can I say? You can follow us also, speaking of Twitter, at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. Guys, you can join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod, and also facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Guys, if you're joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe, like, and share. Obviously, we really appreciate the super chats, the stars, the stickers, et cetera, but not everybody's always in a position to be financially giving. So subscribing, liking, and sharing, 100% free. That's something you can do. Doesn't cost a thing. So we appreciate that a heck of a lot. Also, guys, speaking of YouTube, please go to youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. I also just dropped it in the chat here. You guys can click this link right here. It'll take you to Scott's page, and let's get the ball rolling. Scott, what's give me the elevator pitch. What's going on right now on the channel?
Right now, I've just been doing a lot of some of the old throwback stuff until I get a feeling until I start wanting to do my own. It's easy with you. You know, we got a time, we got a schedule, but sometimes it can be hard to get motivated to just do stuff by yourself. Yeah. So this has been great for me. I'm kind of looking forward to having more realistic things to talk about with the Falcons. But I want to get back into some of the best ofs, and I want to start interviewing some of my colleagues across the country. But I've been doing some throwback stuff. I did Tyree Cleveland last week, DK Metcalf with his spotlight from the class of 2016 that we shot 5 years ago. It was kind of fun to go back and listen to him, who we modeled his game after. So that type of stuff right now. And then, you know, I've always got Chelsea on the mind, Premier League football, transfer stuff. So if you ever have any questions on that, hit me up on Twitter on that. I don't talk soccer with enough people, period.
Just humor me. This is for me, guys. I'm sorry. I'm selfish. The Euros are starting up here, right? And I always love international soccer.
The first game.
Who should we put our money on?
France is going to be tough. France is going to be tough, but they've got a little internal strife going right now with Olivier Giroud saying, you know, Mbappe is not passing me the ball enough, and and that was a team 2 cycles ago with all that talent. They didn't win a game. They bombed out. Didn't even make make it out of the group stages in the World Cup. So top to bottom, I think they're the best, but we'll see. Should be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I was in. I remember being in Portland when they won the World Cup in a big old block party. That was pretty fun. Wasn't pulling for them. I was pulling for Croatia, but what can you do? We got Zebulon in the house. Zebulon Foster over on YouTube. Good morning. Good morning to you, Zebulon. Franco coming in here saying Broncos need Watson or Rodgers. KB82 saying good morning, fellas. At 800 military.
Yeah, it's 0800. As a MASH baby. Watching MASH through the years and wondering why I had a drinking problem when I got into my 20s is they're swilling homemade gin and then going into surgery thinking that was the way to go. I'm familiar with the military time.
My grandpa was in a MASH unit surgeon over in Korea, so I've heard all the sticks. He's like, oh, it wasn't really like that, but some of it was. Good morning from EJ. Good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. We got Anthony Cordova coming in here saying good morning, Nick and Scott. Go Broncos from Arizona. Larry A in the house saying Nick and Scott, good to see you. Good to see you, Larry A. And we got Muhammad Badri in the house with the $2 super over on YouTube. Muhammad, always supporting the show. We really appreciate you. Shout out to Malik as well, his newborn son. Everybody, shout out to Malik in the chat as well. Get the good vibes going this morning. And Muhammad says, good morning, fellas. Good morning to you, Muhammad. We appreciate you. It's great to see you in here. Love you for that. Ashton's in the house as well. Good morning, gents. I don't know what's up with the sub chat. Muhammad, what's going on? It's Nick. I'm Nick. That's right now. We got Moron in here. Guten Morgen, Nick and Scott. I think Moron might be pulling for Germany in the Euros. Peter Middleton, speaking of Euros, that Turkey coming in here. Hey, all, Broncos time is every time. That's right. Every single time of the day, 24:01. We got some questions here. We'll get to you, KB. I see you asking some good ones. Bob Skinner in the house. Good morning, Broncos country. We got Raid coming in here saying Mile High salute, Broncos country. Good to see you. Franco Ruiz in the house. Good to see you. Glenn Hauser, how you doing, Glenn? Good to see you. Good morning. Miguel coming in here too. Or Michael, excuse me. Good morning, Nick and Scott from Broncos country. From Broncos for breakfast. I got my Mile High Huddle swag. Good for you. Good job, Michael. Go Broncos. We got Vic's in the house too, checking in from Houston. A Savage is in the house. We got Joel in the house. Aaron P's in the house. Glenn Hauser. When did Barry White start hosting the show? Wait, being told that's Nick. Well, I don't know if I appreciate that or not, but I'll just take it.
I think that's pretty awesome, personally. I don't listen to pop. I knew who Christina Aguilera was, but I'd never heard her sing until the first time I heard her sing. I was like, you mean that bony white chick is the one that sounds like Aretha Franklin? My God. So you sounding like Barry White is a very good thing.
I'll take that. Is that the guy they make I cannot remember. In the Office Space?
I mean, it's like Chef. Chef is Barry White from South Park. That's kind of who he's modeled after.
Oh, man, I'll take it. I feel like my voice is kind of low today. I don't know what's going on. But Mohammed Badri coming in with the $3 super as well. Double dip in today, Mohammed. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And let's get to the topic at hand. I see some good questions in here coming in, and I'm going to pin those so that way we're not going to lose those. But the topic out of the gate is we're back in things. Deshaun Watson. We had a interview just recently with former Broncos cornerback and one of the best personalities in football during his time, and Aqib Talib, interviewing Broncos safety Kareem Jackson. And Deshaun Watson was brought up. Kareem Jackson essentially said he's been talking to Deshaun Watson, telling him how great Denver is. It's a destination city, as Peyton Manning even said recently when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. And that quote, or I guess an indirect quote here is that Deshaun Watson wants to be a Bronco. I know that Ian Rappaport pushed back and said that like there are many teams that he'd want to. I don't know if Denver is the team he'd like to go to, but Denver is one of the teams Deshaun Watson would be interested in. But here we are, back on the Deshaun Watson's side of things, and I don't really know what to make of it because everything surrounding Deshaun Watson is not great. He's an incredible quarterback. He's probably, if there was a redraft in the NFL right now, and just for purely football stuff, I think he'd be the second guy off the board because of his age, his talent. They'd go Patrick Mahomes and then Deshaun Watson. But you can't ignore all the off-field stuff, and it just makes it a really, really tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, wanting to go to Denver is one thing. Being able to go to Denver is another. And we're in the legal phase now. It's like it's gone quiet. You know, something goes quiet for 2 or 3 weeks. You know, we're as sports fans, we automatically start thinking, oh, well, it's gone. No, we're in the legal phase now where and that can take a long time. And the scary thing about Deshaun Watson's situation is right now, nobody's talking about settling. Okay. But if it goes to trial, this thing's not going to be going to be settled till after the 2021 season. So this could stretch on another year. The good news, let's just say, presumed innocent until proven guilty, is Deshaun Watson's still a young guy. So if he comes out of this unscathed, he didn't lose. He still has a long time to play. The bad news is obvious. The flip side of this is obvious. He's gonna go away for a long time. It might not just be civil. There could still be criminal charges filed against him. And going up against and trying to bring someone like that in right now it's next to impossible. I don't think the league would allow it right now, to be honest with you. I think the league would step in and say, you can't do that right now. They've had I think 4 of the complaints against him have talked with the league already. Several have talked to the police department. So it's hands off right now. It's fun to talk. It's interesting to talk about as a computer game. Like, wow, Deshaun Watson plugging into here, but we're dealing with people here. And right now the person is going to be a tough. It's not going to happen right now.
Yeah, and shout out to Gary Leeds Palmer leading the way for us. Good morning, Broncos country, DB4L, and thank you very much for the stars, Gary. We see you, we appreciate you, and also shout out to Todd coming in here on YouTube saying, "Hey, this is the first time I've been able to watch. Excited to see what's going on in my home country, Broncos country." All right, well, welcome in, Todd. Hopefully you'll stick around, and hopefully we'll be bringing you some good stuff as well. Send you some stars as you deserve it. Thank you very much, Peter. We appreciate it. You're the man as well.
And from the comments, I'm guessing Gary did too. So thank you. I know a couple of really good contributors. We don't see the Facebook. So when you guys see them, people that do that necessarily want to call themselves out sometimes, just thank them too. So, when the community says thank you to those people, like, it happens with Pavi a lot. Yeah. Then that helps us as well. Yeah, exactly. That was Isaac Hayes. Thank you, Sir Isaac Hayes. Sir Isaac Hayes has that deep, smooth jazz voice. It's similar. It's what reminded me of Barry White. So I think that was KB that said that earlier. So thank you. Yeah, no, that's a good call. Did you ever see Office Space? What was the name? Come on. You did? Okay. Was it Barry White that they're making fun? Like, your name is Barry White, like the singer? No, that was Michael Bolton. Michael Bolton. Okay. Yeah. That's like the first 45 minutes of Office Space is one of the best 45 minutes in cinematic history. Oh, that's such a good show. God, I think we've all been there. But okay, yes, it was Michael Bolton for sure. David's in the house. Good morning, gents. Good morning to you as well. Jason's also in the house. And Glenn saying, when it comes to politicking for Watson, Kareem clearly has 0 locks given. That's an interesting thing. You have to talk about all these players that are very much towing the company line when it comes to saying the right things about the player. That's my quarterback right now, whatnot. But I do think it's interesting that Kareem Jackson, I don't know if it's his age or just who he is as a person, etc. But you haven't heard him come out and being like, oh man, I love Locke. I love Bridgewater. Watson, if we got him, that'd be great. But he's really been out here just left and right, advocating for Deshaun Watson coming in here. So obviously, if it's Locke or Bridgewater, he'll probably, put some comments out there. Somebody will ask him eventually, but typically you don't see that from players. If you pull a player aside or you talk to them one-on-one, you'll hear what they really think. But in the press conference kind of thing, I think that's a little interesting. Yeah, honestly, it sounds like someone who's out of the game. Honestly, it sounds like a former player. So when you said someone's going to pull him aside, someone's going to pull him aside and say, hey, keep your mouth shut, please. I mean, yeah. Broncos country is pretty good at that. A little pay to play sometimes, but is what it is. But yeah, let's. What does this mean? Okay, so we obviously have the Deshaun Watson stuff going on here. All the allegations enough where it's more than smoke, right? You see a flicker at least, if not a full roaring flame when it comes to all the allegations. There are rumors that he is going to be on the commissioner's exempt list. So you're going to have to deal with that if you trade for him. What do you make of all of it? Obviously, we're not going to ask you, to believe him or not believe him, because the reality is all these charges are here. I don't think the hearing is until after the season even. So it's a tough situation. He can't be deposed until I read, there was an article on ESPN. It was written by, let me see her name, Sarah Barshop on June 8th. So just a couple of days ago, it kind of broke all this stuff down. And I was reading through it, and I was like, the exempt list says that he basically is in the league, but not on a team. He doesn't count against he's still getting paid. Well, who's paying him? If I'm the owner and you're going to say the commissioner is going to come in and say he can't play for you. He doesn't count against your 51-man roster, but you still got to pay him. I would think that the league would then step in. It's not like they don't have enough money. If you're going to pull him off of there and you're going to get a commissioner's exemption list, the NFL should keep paying him if he's going to get paid. Now, if he gets suspended, then all bets are off. Then he's not getting paid. And again, you can't just, if it's one person, we've seen enough where this goes both ways, where it's someone just trying to get money, or it's someone who has, been abused, attacked, assaulted, or whatnot. But when you start getting to, you start talking about dozens, that's a little different, and I think that's why this has a very different feel to it, with the way people are talking about it. And, you like to say innocent until proven guilty, but, it means you have to be proven guilty. It doesn't mean you're innocent.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there's, optics as well the Broncos have to deal with. So it's I think it's one of those things that unfortunately for everybody involved, that it's the reality, and that probably going to be put in a box until the next offseason. And what does that mean? There'll be other teams that might be interested. Obviously, the whole legal process has to play out. So this is far from over. I just can't see him being traded this cycle. I think you're going to have to wait until an offseason from now. And then what does that mean? Like maybe Drew Lock comes out of not nowhere, but Drew Lock takes massive Josh Allen leaps forward and becomes like a top 12 quarterback this year. Maybe that changes the formula. Maybe the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, is terrible, and they use some of their draft capital, their plethora of draft capital, to go out and get Deshaun Watson. So things will change. But we got Reese coming in here, and thanks to you guys in the comment section for letting us know. This is the stars. Typically, I have John in the background of his little box off screen going like this. Stars. that way we know. Reese comes in and says on Facebook, am I the only one glad that we likely aren't going to get Rodgers or Watson this year? I am hopeful that Locke/Bridgewater will come through and we won't need to give up the draft capital and players. Well, Reese, I don't know. You're probably not the only one who is glad. But I think you probably would be in the minority, and that's just because of the talent, specifically with Rodgers and Watson before the injury. But you're talking about two top, I don't think it's actually that big of a stretch, two of the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. If I had to rank them, they'd be right in the top 4 with Brady and Wilson being the other guys. So if you could get those guys in, if you're giving up players and capital, that hurts. But we've seen in the league, unless you get extremely lucky or put together like that one magical season where everybody's healthy and the ball bounces your way on defense and you're stacked in other areas, and let's like you have Bill Vinovich calling games against you, 2012 Broncos, then you really have to have that quarterback if you're going to make any noise in this league. And that's more apparent than it's ever been. It's more QB driven than the league's ever been right now. So glad. I am hopeful for Bridge and Lockwater, but if I could get pre-allegation or no allegation Watson or Rodgers on this team, I think I'm probably in the majority here. I'd say that you got to be able to do that if you can.
Well, and I definitely, it says here, to give up the draft capital, and that I love the draft, and that's part of it. I love it. And it makes it easier. Let's take Deshaun Watson, the player, and pretend this is Madden career mode, and we're just dealing with digits and not off the field stuff. It makes it real easy to make that move with Deshaun Watson. He's 25 years old. You've got him for the next 10 to 15 years. Giving up multiple first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers it's you still probably do it, but it's a little tougher to take because he's older. He's on. He's still playing at a super high level. Obviously, MVP, 45 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, I think. Mm-hmm. But how long can he keep going? Can he keep going for another 7 years? Okay, great. 3 or 4, and then there's a drop off, and then you're not able to elevate other players, the other positions around him because you've just given up 2 or 3 first round draft picks. That becomes a little bit more of a question. So again, it comes down to what's the cost. There's almost not a cost that's too much for Deshaun Watson. Relatively speaking. Don't be silly. But with Rodgers, it starts becoming, okay, can we build a good enough team with what we have that we don't need to give up all these other things? As I like to say, you don't want to plan for the future by mortgaging the future, and the Denver Broncos are going to be around long after Aaron Rodgers. So you don't want to mortgage the future for that. But another Super Bowl ring would look nice.
That's true. And Denver has kind of come to the place where quarterbacks in their golden years go off and maybe win a ring or two and head off into the sunset, which would be pretty awesome with Rodgers as well. Victor coming in here saying, just came now, which one would you go for, Watson or Aaron? Good morning, guys. I was like, GM. Well, I guess we're playing GM here. But in a vacuum, without all the off-field stuff, it's Watson, but I cannot get past all the off-field stuff with Watson. So I probably would go for Aaron Rodgers given what we know right now. Also, I think Aaron's more likely to be traded this offseason than Watson as well. But you make a good point there. This is a topic that we had many times when honestly, we got pretty fortunate with the Watson stuff. Otherwise, I just would have been talking draft quarterbacks for 3 months leading up to the draft. But with Watson, I don't know if there is an actual price that you could pay for the value on the field, given he's 24, 25 years old. You can only trade 3 years worth of draft capital also, which limits how much you can give. Name your price. And people are like, oh man, that's way too much to give. I don't think people appreciate the window you would have with a 25-year-old top 5 quarterback in the NFL. That would give you 10 to 15 years of great quarterback play. And every single year is a reshuffle of the cards, a reroll of the dice where you can have another chance, restack the roster. And they're like, oh, that's, whatever, 15 years. Go back 15 years in Broncos history. You know who the starting quarterback was for the Broncos?
I do now.
Jake Plummer.
I do now.
Yeah.
Since doing this show, I can tell you.
Yeah. Which is crazy, right? That feels like ancient history in football. But imagine having a top 5-10 quarterback for that length of time. That's how you have a chance at winning Super Bowls. It's not like putting the best team together one single season. It's having a great quarterback and a great core year after year, knocking on that door repeatedly, because in a single elimination tournament, anything can happen, even if you have the best team.
Yeah, for me, it's Watson. If it's one game, I'll take Rodgers. But I'm looking at longevity here. The first fantasy football league I ever ran was a keeper league. I like the scouting and the keeping and getting young players, because they can sustain you for so much longer. So for me, I'd go Watson. For this season, I'd probably take Aaron Rodgers for 1 year. So then it depends on what you're willing to give up. So that becomes a question, but you're not getting a guy for 1 year. So, Watson, just because of the longevity, there's not that big of a difference in their quarterback play. And frankly, Deshaun Watson's 2020 season was insane. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, almost 5,000 yards on a 4-12 team. Come on. Let's go look at the numbers on any other team that finished 7-9 or below. And no one else, I wouldn't expect anybody else to be close, let alone 4-12. So he's, 25 years old, 3-time Pro Bowler in his first 4 seasons. You're going to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, no, that's honestly, looking at the Texans with how good Deshaun Watson played last year, I feel like Ron Burgundy, when Backstreet's the Wheel of Cheese, is like, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. How could you have that poor of a record if your quarterback is playing that good of football? It's honestly an accomplishment. And then to not even have the 2nd overall pick or the 3rd overall pick to cash in on when you've been that bad. It's my God, this is why I'm always really, really, really skeptical of head coaches that also have general manager powers, because there needs to be like a balance of powers there. General manager needs to think.
Not only that, it's 2 different skills. As a coach, you've got to develop a bond and relationship with these players, which totally taints your ability to evaluate neutrally.
That's true.
This is similar from my experience, is when you're doing reporting versus when you were doing rankings. I've done reporting on recruiting and free agency and all that stuff versus ranking players. And when I was ranking players, I removed myself completely. It's like, I don't want to meet the parents. I don't want to, except to, I want to observe, but I don't want to interact, because it totally changed you. And it's a totally different skill set. Yeah. One of the phrases I use all the time is, we all have biases. It's like, oh, you're biased. Yeah, that's what makes us who we are. Being able to recognize your bias and then account for it, or remove yourself from it because you're too close to the situation, is what makes you impartial. And it's almost impossible to be impartial when you're coaching these guys. It's impossible.
Yeah. What is your biggest bias when it comes to scouting? For me, it's the height, weight, speed, length defensive linemen that have good get off. And I'll be the first to admit, I thought, granted, it was probably based too much on a small sample size, but Taven Bryan from Florida, just his get off and his strength, man, he's been an absolute bust in Jacksonville. But I thought he was going to be great just because he was so athletic, twitched up, and whatnot.
My biggest one is probably big receivers.
Okay.
As far as which way to go, I like the bigger receivers. And for me, it's on that scale. When you're looking at it, there's a production scale, and then there's an athletic scale, like line. If you're doing on a line graph, and where those two meet the highest is going to be your best player.
Yep.
You've got guys that are incredible athletes with low production.
Jason
So you move them down, and you've got guys who have awesome production that aren't very good athletes. I actually prefer those guys because you know what you're going to get. There's upside, there's this and this, but when you've got an incredible athlete that isn't necessarily producing, why? Then you dig into the numbers. Just like when we're talking about Deshaun Watson's 33-7, we know those numbers are phenomenal. They're incredible. Mm-hmm. But were they down 28-0? In the first half their games, and he's getting, cheap garbage touchdowns down in the second quarter to make it 35-14. I don't know. I didn't watch enough of them to see, but maybe that's it. Maybe it wasn't such an amazing year. I think it probably was, but before I'm going to go spend $100 million, I'm going to get a team of analysts to go look at that and say, okay, what's behind these numbers? Because you can't have the guy who's coaching them and doing all this stuff in charge of a $1 billion franchise and the players that are coming in. It's too difficult. I say all the time, I don't want Vic Fangio thinking about free agency with the playoffs coming up. I don't, maybe, tapping up a guy a little bit, say, hey, we sure could use you next year. Be a recruiter, but that's not your job to be out there negotiating contracts, because anytime there's a negotiation, if there's any kind of give and take, neither party is 100% happy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to go and say, Nick, sorry, I couldn't get you that fourth year, but welcome to the team. Now go out there and run laps. It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit surprised you lean towards the production over the athleticism, given this last draft cycle with Jason Owe and Spencer Brown, both those guys.
Yeah. With Owe, but he busts through that list, and he's so you do a little more research. So, okay, is he just a combine warrior? I go and talk to Mark Brennan at Penn State. What's he doing? I go and look, find out a little bit more about him. Why is he having low production? Well, they're running away from him. The team wasn't very good. He was still all Big Ten from the coaches because they knew what an impact he had on the game and how they had to scheme around him.
Yeah.
And back into the first round with that type of production, I think is the right spot. I wouldn't necessarily want to throw a top 10 pick on him. And we didn't talk about him taking him that high.
No.
But there's if it's close, see, he's not close. That's not close.
Yeah, it's
he's
true.
A freak of freaks.
Also, his other stats were good. Like, he didn't get the sacks, but like his pressure rate, his win rate, et cetera, were all high. So let's get to Travis here. Real quick, Travis, a friend of mine, going back a bit. So shout out to you, Travis. Thank you for joining us today. Saying, I know it's Locke/Teddy show when it comes to the quarterback position, and I'm hoping Locke can put it together because I am not big on Teddy. No offense. Just didn't think much of him coming out of college. If Denver did go after Rodgers/Watson, I would prefer Watson. So thank you for the comment, Travis. I hope you're doing well. And I want to get to this comment here real quick, just because he says he wasn't big on Teddy in college. And Scott, I know that you are on a different side of that. You were pretty big on Bridgewater, even coming out of high school. So
it's different. Again, I would want to have a little bit more of that discussion. And if you put it in the comments, I'll go to that. When you say big, Danny Warfel is, to me, one of the best college quarterbacks of all time. Tim Tebow is maybe the best college football player of all time.
Case Keenum, the most passing yards and touchdowns.
As NFL guys, it's a different thing. So Teddy Bridgewater was a phenomenal college quarterback. That doesn't mean you can be high on him going towards the next level, which I understand, because you're looking at him and he's a little awkward. He doesn't do anything that's pretty except play the position. And sometimes that's hard to quantify. And sometimes it comes down to just being a gut feeling where this guy gets it done. And that's what I've always loved about Teddy. He didn't necessarily always look the prettiest doing it, but he always got it done. I've said the same thing about Phillip Rivers. I've used this line for 20 years now because he was actually an Auburn Tiger legacy, and Auburn didn't offer him. And I'm like, I can't really blame them for that. I've watched this guy for 20 years and still can't believe. I'll watch him throw a ball and still can't believe he's a quarterback. I mean, it's one of those. The motions are so bad. You would never tell anybody to watch him throw the ball and say, okay, I want you to do it like that, ever. You know, if you guys are baseball fans, I've kind of compared my son to Hunter Pence. Hunter Pence is goofy looking. He does everything goofy, and he's really, really good. So sometimes you got to just throw all that stuff away when you're evaluating, and that's when the production comes in. You know, and if you're playing well enough, you will eventually elevate to that position, even if you don't necessarily get picked as high as some of the other guys who have those measurables and look good on the hoof, so they say. You know, the Moneyball line from Billy Beane, who says, you know, we're not selling jeans. No, that's baseball. In football, you kind of are. You know, you can kind of tell who the athletes are when they step off the bus. But at the NFL level, it is a little bit different.
And one of the questions has been lost in the chat for me, so I can't really pull it up or give you a shout out, but I thought it was a good one. And there's a nuance to this answer from me is what does Von Miller need to do this year from a sack production to get a second contract from the Broncos? And I think there's a fine line here on both sides where if Von Miller doesn't play well enough, he's probably not back. But there also might be something where he's like, let's say he has a 15 sack season. But the Broncos, are you going to pay Von Miller and let Bradley Chubb walk? I guess the injuries make that a conversation with Chubb. But Von Miller is going to be, what is he, 32 years old this year? 33 years old? And typically for edge rushers, unless they're like the guys who are power guys with like massive size, they tend to fall off. There's just like a cliff that they reach because they lose that twitch in that bend. And not saying Von Miller has had it yet, but like time comes for everyone besides Tom Brady. God damn it. But that's an interesting conversation where let's say Von Miller has a 15 sack season. That'd be incredible. But like if he's asking for $20 million a year for the next 5 years, I don't know. I don't know if I would pay that. And people would lose their minds because of that. But it's just like it's the age. It's also because of you have Bradley Chubb on this team who is 26, 20, 25, 26, 27. So he's still got a lot of good football in front of him, assuming he's healthy. So that's a good question. I think it could go either way. If Von has 10 sacks, he could come back. But I think for Von Miller, he's going to determine it more than the Broncos are. I think if he wants to come back. And a lot of that depends on the quarterback. Like, let's say the Broncos go with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock, and they both blow chunks this season. I think Von Miller is going to be out of here. I think he's going to go somewhere where he can, his last 2-3 years of great to elite play, he'll go somewhere where he can win a ring because I think he's had enough of he would have at that point had enough of the world of suck that has been trudging around in the AFC West without a quarterback.
So for them, it's changing a little bit, which I'm thankful for. But NFL contracts have typically been a series of 1-year extended option years for the club options anyway. What I mean by that is if you sign a 3-year deal, you may only play one and you get cut the next 2. Yeah, I think Von Miller at his age is probably going to be on 1-year deals. If he comes back, it'll be a 1-year deal. And the thing is if another $20 million at 33, then that'd be great. So again, if someone offers him 3 years with, 3 times the money guaranteed, a 3-year, $60 million guaranteed contract, you say, thank you, Vaughn. It's been awesome. Good luck. And we appreciate you. But I would expect him to still be getting 1-year offers as long as he's playing at a decent level from the Denver Broncos would be my thought. But we'll see.
Yeah. And coming back here to the Deshaun Watson stuff and the trade for him. This has been a rough stretch we have been on, the Denver Broncos. If we trade the Broncos for Watson and you give up all the capital, do you want to be in the same boat later down the stream? And it's maybe a similar boat, but it's a different boat because the first question when you look at a team that I look at when I look at a team is, do they have a good enough quarterback? If yes, you move them on to the next year. You can ask those secondary, tertiary questions. If no, all right, we'll see you next year. Good luck. That's really, it's the defining factor for if a team is going to have a chance or not. And that's a reason, unfortunately, and obviously the Broncos have good young weapons, one of the best secondaries in football. Chubb and Von Miller should be very fun this season, but it's a reason that a lot of the media and NFL analysts and a lot of very intelligent analysts, you get mad at them when they don't talk good about your team, but like guys who've been doing it very well for a long time, they look at the Broncos, they're like, this is a good team. I have no idea what I have in the quarterback position here. Odds are it's probably not good enough. So putting the Broncos in the bottom doesn't mean that's going to be their fate because the football has not yet played out. But it's really, that's the first, when you look at a team, I think quarterback is the first thing you look at. And that's a reason that you do trade for Watson. Are you going to be in the same boat? Maybe you're struggling a little bit, but you're going to have 10 to 15 years to figure it out. And you have the most important question emphatically answered. And that's, again, all this talk about Watson, I want to emphasize it's in a box it's football related, because right now I think he is untouchable.
And Miguel, I'm going to answer it a different way also. Think about how much money does a first round draft pick take up who's unproven? Now you're not having to pay that. You're not having to pay that. And when you've got an elite quarterback, you end up getting all of these veteran cut rate deals that the Patriots have been getting for the last 10 years. You know, these guys coming in that play at a high level the last 2 or 3 years, who are looking for a ring, who are good pros, who are smart pros, who are system guys. And you're getting them for cheaper because people want to come and play with a quarterback like that, who want to come for a chance to win. So, you know, you give away a couple of first round draft picks, and in the short term, I don't think it hurts. It's worth it. The bottom line is it ends up being worth it. And there's ways you can get that talent back because you become a more attractive destination for free agents. And you've got the money you're not spending on those draft picks, which amounts between 10 and 12 million a year on free agency.
Yep.
That's not all bad.
Nope. I mean, just an anecdote here for this example is the Broncos, when they had Peyton Manning, Emmanuel Sanders was literally in Kansas City's facility ready to sign a contract. And then the Broncos called him and they're like, wait a second, I get a chance to go play with Peyton Manning? See you, KC. Like, they're going to pay me equal money or even slightly less, but I get to go play with Peyton Manning. Are you kidding me? Like, no offense, Alex Smith, Andy Reid, good guys, whatever. Peyton Manning. So that's kind of what you hear. That's what you'd have here. But it is an interesting topic here, for sure. And I have a lot of people in here asking, you going for Watson, you going for roll with Drew, et cetera, et cetera. You have not had a very strong stance yet on the Broncos quarterback position battle, just because we haven't had real football to analyze, that's fine. But a lot of people, I feel, are pulling for Drew because if Drew wins, it's the best case for the Broncos long term, which I agree with. But let's say Bridgewater does win, because Drew Lock is 2020 Drew Lock again this season, and all the talk about improving accuracy, working Peyton Manning is just talk, doesn't come to fruition on the field. That doesn't mean that this team needs to punt totally on the season, because I think this team with Bridgewater can be very good. And you've had personal experience with Bridgewater, et cetera, and watching him play in high school. So what does this team look like? The positive outlook. Let's say Drew Lock struggles and Teddy takes over. What's the positive outlook for this team with Teddy Bridgewater leading the helm and pushing them through the AFC?
Teddy's number one job is going to be to get the ball to his playmakers. He's not going to be the playmaker. He's going to get the ball to his playmakers. You put him in a 4-wide or 4 receivers up there. You got Noah Fant. You got a basketball team out there. Someone in the slot, good running back behind him, and just turn him loose. I mean, he's just effective. Yeah. But he'll put the ball in the right spots. He's not going to make the Aaron Rodgers type of throws where, I remember one of the first times I watched Aaron Rodgers put up 50 on Atlanta. I was like, if someone was making those throws against me in Madden, I'd be pissed off and calling him a glitch person.
Yeah.
Doing those kind of things. He's not going to be that guy, but he's effective. Mm-hmm. But we haven't taken a strong stance because he's not a no doubt. No. Teddy Bridgewater isn't a no-brainer. So if Drew Lock elevates his game, then he absolutely can win the position. Teddy Bridgewater isn't a long-term answer. So, how we've talked about Bridgewater is if Bridgewater wins a job, 2023, he shouldn't be the quarterback. He shouldn't be the quarterback in 2023. You might get it this year, might get it next year while you draft and develop a guy for 2023. So who's going to be the guy in 2023? It's either going to be Lock or it's going to be someone else. Teddy Bridgewater is brought in as insurance in case Lock does not step up, and it's a very good insurance policy.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a average-ish quarterback in his high years, and he's just hard to talk about too because that injury really derailed him, right? Like what would he be right now if he didn't have the injury? He still does not have the arm talent or the athletic tools of those elite quarterbacks outside of Tom Brady, whose arm's gotten like stronger over time, which is pretty fun and wild to watch. I hate Brady, but that's interesting. But I think the way this team is set up right now, you do not need it'd be nice to have Aaron Rodgers. You do not need Aaron Rodgers out there to run a functional offense. You just need somebody who can be the pilot, right? Just drive the ship. It's going to be fine. Get the ball to the playmakers. You got enough of them. Don't make mistakes and lean into the defense, lean into the running game, Is that enough to take this team over the hump in the AFC West with the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert? Maybe in a single season, right? Like anything can happen if you put together a good enough roster over the next decade. That's not a formula to win a majority of the AFC West titles, but in one season, it could happen for sure. And this is the team right now. Everybody's like, we already know what Bridgewater is. Play lock. Well, guys, this is coaches right now. They're fighting for their job, right? Like Vic Fangio, Pat Shurmur, everybody in here right now, they're trying to win. And I think that George Payton also has a shine for a lot of the coaches right now. I think he really does like Vic Fangio. I mean, just look at all the moves he made this offseason. A lot of it is empowering Vic Fangio and this defense. And also sometimes even like on a little bit more short-term or immediate. Like if George Payton was thinking really long-term with this team and like, well, let's just move on from Vic Fangio, probably would have taken Justin Fields. You're probably not seeing him pay Kyle Fuller to this 1-year contract because he could have kicked that money back or signed a younger player, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of moves that are empowering Vic Fangio. And that to me also means that even though finding out what Drew Lock truly is probably maybe better for this team long term, that's not exactly the viewpoint that this franchise has right now because too many people are on this do or die season.
Yeah, and Ashton calling me out on Cortland Sutton because that's why I usually just say Cortland because I trip over his name all the time. So apologies, it will not be the last time I mess up his name. And I actually thought there was we'll get to Reese's question. If we get Watson and $40+ million salary cap, that changes the entire business model. So it isn't just losing draft capital players. We won't be able to keep some of our upcoming starters too on second contracts. If you get $40+ million extra in salary cap, and yeah, that's part of it. We had the discussion on Tuesday about the receiver position, and who do you keep? Patrick, Hamler, who's coming up on contracts? Sutton. Cortland Sutton, who's going to be on a contract too. But the thing is it's not going to be just who else can you bring in. You're going to be paying your current guys more, all of them across the board. You've got more money. Everybody's got more money. So it's, we got $40 million. We can bring in two more extra, 3 more $12 million, $13 million guys. Not necessarily. The agents are going to want a bigger chunk of that for their current clients as well. So, I agree with you on that one. We're able to keep some of our upcoming starters on second contracts. It's going to be like that no matter what. So if you get Watson and all that cap, you've got it now. What I look at it now is here's the roster you have. Here's the cap space you have. Does one guy coming in and eating up all that cap space make a difference for this team? Yeah, he does. Worth it.
Especially if it's a quarterback.
We're going back. Worth it.
Yeah. It changes the formula a bit for sure, and you will have to be more frugal with your quarterback, or your draft picks later on, and you need to hit them. But great quarterbacks, they cover up holes. It's the leaky dam situation where a good quarterback, they have 20 fingers, right? And if the dam is leaking, the great quarterback can put their finger in that dam, and they can cover up a lot of those holes and take you farther. But that's. Haven't seen that here. I mean, this is a good anecdote as well. Even when Peyton was bad struggling towards the end of his career, Broncos offensive line the year they won the Super Bowl and most of Peyton Manning's career was not better than the Broncos offensive line was last year or this year. Didn't matter that much, right? Even 2013, I would take the Broncos offensive line this year over that incredible offense from 2013. When the quarterback's that good, they can overcome those things. Because they dictate offensive flow. They dictate where the ball goes, pre-snap, post-snap, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to have the best offensive line in football or the best set of weapons in football when the quarterback is that good. It doesn't hurt, but
yeah. No, I like the running game. To help take some of that pressure off and remove some of the predictability. But yeah, getting in the pre-snap checks, getting rid of the ball in a hurry, the vision. Having 360-degree vision, it helps for sure, without a doubt.
Yep. And this is Charlie coming in. He's not talking to us, but I do think this is interesting. When we point out why Drew hasn't been more successful, people say excuses. So what makes us different for Teddy? Those seem like excuses as well. And Tommy was talking about playing with different receivers and whatnot. I think the biggest thing that puts Teddy in a different category is just that knee injury is different than many players had. I mean, there was talk of him not walking again, right? Let alone playing football with how serious that injury was. And people like players, won't forget when Teddy got injured. I remember watching on NFL Network, like Vikings players on their knees, like sobbing because like not only did they think they had a young franchise quarterback? They were going somewhere as potential Super Bowl contenders that year, but they loved Teddy as well. So I think it's a little bit different. And if the knee thing is an excuse, then everything's an excuse then. But I want to push back a little bit against that one. The other stuff, for sure. But the knee injury, puts them in a different box.
And again, we're coming in not talking about this is the difference maker. So what are your expectations? Again, no one has said that Teddy Bridgewater is a huge upgrade on Drew Lock coming in. What we've said is that he's a competent quarterback. He can play. And the phrase that Nick uses all the time is it raises the floor of how bad your play can be, which is good. If you're, we're not saying that he's going to go out there and be a top 10 quarterback. So again, what are your expectations for him? For me, I expect competent quarterback play with the Denver Broncos this year. Competent. Yep.
And the way this team is set up right now, that's really what you need. You don't have to have a perfect team. I mean, it's a very young offense, young weapons, but that's another thing here where people, I don't think, put enough credence in it when talking about this quarterback position battle is you have a young offense, and these guys, it's kind of like what you saw with the development of Eric Decker, Julius Thomas, Demaryius Thomas, going from Tim Tebow, Kyle Orton, etc., to Peyton Manning. These young players, they need reps and positive play and consistency to grow, to reach their ceiling, right? Like if you go out there and you have inconsistent quarterback play, poor quarterback play, you're capping the development of Cortland Sutton, of Jerry Jeudy, of Noah Fant. Like they're still going to get better, but they need to be put in position where they can improve. And a lot of that depends on the quarterback being able to execute the offense, put them in the right spot, having the knowledge to do that, and making the right reads. So it's not just about figuring out what you have and developing the young quarterback. That's the best case scenario, but you also don't want the quarterback play where it's an issue to the extent where you're not developing the young offense around those guys, because that's really important for this team going forward, given how young and talented and the investments the Broncos have made on the offensive side of the football.
And we've all of a sudden the supers are starting to roll in. Broncos 17-0. Why not? Why not 17-0? Appreciate you going with the super sticker. TD Randell sending some love. Certainly appreciate that. And Dale, sorry guys, my phone was in my pocket. Hopefully you can still hear us because we're not much to look at. Plain and simple. So
I was wondering,
turn off the monitor and keep the speakers up, or just listen on the headphones. With that smooth Barry White voice of Nick and my just twang a Southern drawl from me. We got faces for radio anyway. But thanks everybody. It's coming and rolling in as we're getting into the final quarter hour of Broncos for Breakfast.
Yeah, faces for radio for sure. Since Michael Strahan has fixed his teeth, I think I'm going for the most famous Gap in football now with the the teeth there. Come on, Gap, sponsor us. It'd be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. I had a question earlier. Anybody that's been impressing you in camp that you have not heard that much about at this point? A couple names I want to throw out and give a shout out to Scott as well for this one. Apparently, Tyree Cleveland has been impressing. He's kind of down the depth chart a little bit. Farther, obviously, the Broncos wide receiver core is very talented. They've invested pretty heavily in it. But Tyree Cleveland is a guy who's making some noise this year, and that's something to be expected. And I want people... I put out a meme the other day, or a tweet the other day, where people expectations with draft picks versus reality, where it's when people draft somebody, they want the J.G. Wentworth, right? Cash now, versus where really it's investment. It's stonks, stonk up. You got to be patient. You want to get those dividends later on. And Tyree Cleveland coming in his second year, talented player, needed to get all his stuff together on and off the field. But Tyree Cleveland's second year, this is when you're hoping to see that jump. And it's also with Jerry Jeudy too. Like you're hearing a lot about Jerry Jeudy right now, just cooking a lot of the defensive backs farther down the depth chart, just embarrassing them. And second year for wide receiver, historical data says that's the year you really find out about these guys. And we saw that with Cortland Sutton too. Like a lot of people just burying Jerry Jeudy for last year. Data says year one for wide receiver, they're getting their feet wet, blah, blah, blah. Year two is when you kind of figure out where they're at. And it sounds like it's going to be good for both Tyree Cleveland and Jerry Jeudy. Haven't heard as much about KJ Hamler because the hamstring, but it's good news for the Broncos depth at wide receiver. That's one standing out. Michael Ojemudia is another one. Kyle Fuller has not been there as much. Ojemudia, kind of a forgotten man last year, but he's been playing pretty well. And at some point this year, you're probably going to have to lean on the depth of the cornerback room. Even if he's the fifth cornerback, he'll probably be getting starting reps somewhere down the 17-game season. And apparently he's been quite impressive, looking very comfortable out there in this defense. So I'm excited about that.
Well, and there was a comment earlier. I don't remember who it was. It was definitely one of the regulars, Tommy, Charlie, or even maybe Jeremy or someone talking about that. The receivers are coming out more polished and more ready than ever, and they are, because starting in middle school, they're playing football year round now, especially in the South. The Texas 7-on-7 league is actually their summer league that finishes with a state championship is almost as big. It's probably the third biggest sport behind basketball and the regular football. So they're playing year round. They're playing in these AAU, so to speak, 7-on-7 tournaments all the time. They're playing football year round for 7 years now. So they are ready. However, it's still a huge jump from college to the NFL, and the space, the spacing, the physicalness of the corners. It's still a huge jump. It used to be the data was a third year for the receivers. I think with the acceleration of them of their development, now you're looking at a second year, but rookies are still rookies, and they're not all going to take off. And sometimes we look at someone who does the exception to the rule, and we think everybody should be like that. Well, there are exceptions for a reason. So I'm looking forward to seeing Jerry Jeudy in year 2, and I certainly wouldn't want to write him off for sure.
Yeah, no, he's going to be good this year, as long as he can get stay healthy. And the quarterback can put the ball at the right time, the right place. It should be good. We have another one coming in here from Dale. Jerry and the other young receivers should improve a lot when you consider the return of Cortland Sutton. That definitely helps a lot. The Broncos have 3 really good pass-catching weapons that a lot of teams should be envious of. And Jerry Jeudy, obviously, although kind of some hindsight there last year, the Broncos in the 2019 draft, they went from the 10th pick to the 15th pick when Shelby Harris batted down that football for the 2-point conversion. And I will say I'm very happy about Jerry Jeudy, but if the Broncos were picking 10th, I think they would have had Tristan Wirfs. And as an Iowa boy who loves Tristan Wirfs, I probably would rather have had that reality, even though the Broncos would have lost to the Raiders, but is what it is. But I'm excited about Jerry this year. And Noah Fant, man, I think he is a guy. Obviously, it's a position that is, again, dependent on the quarterback, but I think he has a chance to really bust out this year, man. He is young, talented, and if he can stay healthy, look out. Question earlier. Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to comment on Dale's real quick because our regulars have heard me say this before, but I look at the wide receiver core like I do a bullpen in Major League Baseball. When your number one goes down, so Dale, I agree with you for this very reason. When your number one goes down, everybody else is elevated to a spot they might not be ready for. So you didn't just get weaker at one position. In theory, you got weaker at 3 or 4 positions because 2 goes to 1, 2 just got weaker, 1 just got weaker, et cetera, et cetera. So having Sutton come back, and if he ends up being 95% of what he was before, and there's no real reason to think he can't with his age and his skill set, not being a 5'11" twitch receiver, that he can help everybody else take some of that pressure off, and everybody else should get better too. So that was a good comment. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and we had a comment earlier too. I wanted to get to this one. If the Broncos were pushed either direction and they had to move on from a Jerry Jeudy or a Bradley Chubb to make a trade, whether it be Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, et cetera, or like paying one, as good as I think Jerry Jeudy is going to be, I think it's much harder to find yourself a Bradley Chubb. Not only is he a more valuable position, but it's just wide receivers in general. And also the Broncos, I think they had their number one, right? And Cortland Sutton. And if you want to draft a number 1 wide receiver, you still can look in the first round. That's fine. But if you're looking for 2 or 3 or 4, you can find those guys day 2 almost every single year. So I would probably, if I was pushed to move on from either Jerry Jeudy or Chubb, depending on what I feel about the injury with Chubb, that's I don't know there. But I would probably keep Chubb and move Jeudy just because edge rusher is more valuable. It's harder to find that guy. And let's say also in this situation, not only am I trading Jeudy, but I'm also trading first round picks as well to bring in Aaron Rodgers or whatever. It's going to be really hard to find yourself a quality edge rusher if you don't have those first round capital compared to a wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm the same way, without a doubt. Sacks are much harder to get on than people who can catch the ball. I mean, they're just are. When you talk about guys who are getting double-digit sacks, they're just a whole lot harder to find. And if you've got one of those guys, you don't let them go.
Yeah, and Benjamin coming in here saying, Nick, what are your thoughts on Eric Trickle's thoughts on Chubb and his skepticism? I need to hear the specifics here because I don't know exactly what Eric said, so I don't want to assume skepticism on Chubb. If it's is he going to be healthy or is he always going to be dealing with injuries? That's a question. Where they also, if you're putting, I don't expect Chubb to be a Von Miller type, right? Like that's a first ballot Hall of Famer et cetera, et cetera. But like, I think Chubb is in the Ryan Kerrigan boat where you're looking at like 8 to 10 to 12 sacks a year. A power player who's dictating pass blocking schemes as well that you have to pay attention to. And if you have anybody else out there on the defensive line that can rush the passer or good coverage, he can get home. But he's not he's not a era defining defensive talent. Doesn't make him not a good player though.
And Air Mason came in here saying that Justin Fields is getting praise in the OTAs. I would expect that. I would expect that. He's a really talented player. Again, you won't know what you've got from Justin Fields until the other team's trying to bury him under the turf. And there's going to be growing pains for all these guys. Even Trevor Lawrence, who's as good a quarterback prospect that I've seen since why am I drawing a blank? Guy that retired from the Colts, Stanford guy, came out of Texas.
Andrew Luck.
Thank you, Andrew Luck. Getting old. My worry with him is can they protect him enough? Can they protect him enough to build something around him before you get it? So we're not going to know what we got with Justin Fields right away for sure, and especially not during OTAs. But I would expect him to look really good at this point. I
know that he had 2 snaps fumbled in a practice recently, but going from a more heavy shotgun based offense, working with a new center as well. I mean, that exchange, that could have been the center's fault also, who knows? So hard to say, but Justin Fields is a talented quarterback. I'm pulling for him. I have a lot of friends who are Bears fans, given that I am from Eastern Iowa. And man, you guys, we feel like we've been in a bad situation with quarterback play over the last 5 years. Bears have never seen, Jay Cutler had some pretty good seasons there. If Jay would have put in more work, they could have had something pretty special there, but alas. So I'm pulling for the Bears, and I'm getting a little bit tired of the Packers dominance. Hopefully that'll be coming down here in a little bit. And Benjamin saying about Chubb, Eric Trickle's comments on Chubb saying he essentially says that Chubb's best stats came from only a couple games, Jets game, etc., and that his performance doesn't show the volume people think. I think that's this. I have a nuanced answer here because, of course, that's true. But also that's the case for edge rushers in general. Right? That's just how the position works, right? Mm-hmm. Like look at wide receivers. Julio Jones had a game where he only had 1 catch for 10 yards, but then he had a couple where it was 10 catches for 150 yards. That's kind of how it works for that kind of position, right? Like you're not going to have, obviously you'd rather have a guy who has 100 yards a game, but that's just not really how it works. You're going to have explosive games where they're picking on somebody. I feel like that was kind of this was the comment also for Khalil Mack when he absolutely baptized Michael Schofield in the 2015 season and had like 4.5 sacks in that one game. Well, he still had 4.5 sacks in that one game. Sometimes there's going to be games like that. So I think that's just the reality of the edge rusher position. I mean, you go back and look at Von Miller too. I mean, he has games where it's been 2 or 3 sacks and then he'll have a stretch of 0 sacks. That's the nature of it.
Well, and Base Case has an interesting comment here. If we get Deshaun Watson, would you talk yourself into liking him, just like Steeler fans with Big Ben? The power of bias is unbelievable, and I'm not going to speak for anybody or everybody in this, but yes, fans will root for guys in their jersey colors and in their jerseys, and they will make excuses for their behavior on and off the field and start using whataboutisms and all that kind of stuff. And if he is playing, then he's been cleared for the most part. Otherwise, because the stuff that he's being accused of, if it ends up sticking, he ain't coming back. So if he's playing for Denver Broncos, then he's been cleared from all that stuff. So that's also something to think about. But the power of bias is unbelievable. I just was watching. We're talking. I was thinking when y'all were talking about the Packers and their dominance, I was like, I kind of like the Vikings. And for as much as I like the Vikings, I dislike the Twins that much because they had some real a-holes on their team. And it just reminded me, it was like Ryan Braun and I forgot who that other guy that was always getting in fights. I'm like, just proves that if you put jerseys on, once a guy puts you'll root for anybody for the most part that's wearing your jersey. You want them to succeed and you want to like them, even if they're unlikable.
Look no further than any time on Twitter you see Tyreek Hill mentioned in the comments and who did some just allegations of absolutely horrific things. And the comment section from Chiefs fans, right? Like, it's just like, that's probably, I mean, I definitely have family that are Chiefs fans, and they're definitely much more annoying now that they have Patrick Mahomes and this dominance. But man, I cannot get past Tyreek Hill. Also Frank Clark. I mean, I don't know what's up with the Chiefs, man. They signed a bunch of A-holes.
We don't improve as a society until we hold our own accountable.
That's true.
And right now we don't. It's always, well, what about that guy? He's worse. He's still bad.
Yeah.
You got to hold your own accountable. So anyway, my half political talk right there.
Yeah, God. I think that's just more of a philosophical talk there. We have Richie Rich coming in here saying Nick and Scott, settling a case is different than clearing a case name. With Watson, would that impact both of your opinion of him and our team's players? Do you think that will be a bridge too far? It's going to be an issue for some people. It's going to be not an issue for some others. If the Broncos, let's say this is settled out of court and the Broncos then trade for him, how does that impact the value of the trade? Do you have to send as much with everything going on there? I don't know. That's the future. Can't predict that one. But this is the reality of it is if Broncos trade for him and he flames out with all this stuff going on, he's going to be a big issue. And it's going to be the Broncos are like, what are they doing? Horrible decision, blah, blah, blah. But if let's say he settles this out of court, it gets in the rear view and Deshaun Watson comes in and they start winning games. Same with the Big Ben stuff in the past, right? It's like, that's not great. It's a black guy, but we're winning football games. And he seems to have grown. He's learned from it. I can already hear the narratives now.
I'm not going to name names, but you're smart fans. You can figure out who I'm talking about. Who has settled out or even been convicted of heinous crimes and come back and been revered for who they became later on in their careers?
A lot of guys, but
people are forgiving if you're winning.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And a quick shout out here. I wanted to pull this up. Oh man, let me. 1 second. Find a comment here real quick while I pull this up because I wanted to talk about this before we get on.
Oh, you know what? I saw one earlier at the very beginning. I hope this person's still on because I wouldn't be able to pull it back on. But it was I had a comment on a comment. It was Pro Football Focus is great when they're ranking us in the top 5, but they don't know what they're talking about when they're ranking us 30. At quarterbacks. I'm like, well, having done rankings and dealt with fan reactions and stuff, I've found that people remember positive and negative more than right and wrong. So he who ranks us highest at the time is most credible. That's just the way it is. Those guys don't know what they're talking about. Even if they got it right, and he said he wasn't going to be any good. Well, got it right. Doesn't matter. They suck. So it's that was a comment that I thought was pretty funny because it's true. He who ranks us most highly is most credible, and that can fluctuate from day to day.
And that is ironic because that's actually what I was going to pull up here. It's the Broncos, Pro Football Focus has been going through a bunch of different stuff right now. And somebody said, oh, yeah, we love Pro Football Focus when they're ranking our linebackers top 5 and our secondary number 1.
That was right off the top, and it stuck with both of us, I guess. That was in the first 5 minutes.
I wanted to get to this, though. Top secondary units in football per Pro Football Focus. Interesting stuff here. It's a tool, right? Pro Football Focus is a tool. It's not the holy book, right? It does not dictate everything, but if you don't want to outright dismiss it completely. I feel like Pro Football Focus's social media side of things has they put out some stuff that is driven by engagement versus the data stuff. So I definitely want to call that out. They're not always they're like, oh, Big Ben, horrible, but he was like number 7 last year in their deep ball big player, something like that. So okay, well, you're going against your own stats here, buddy. But I thought this was interesting here as far as these offseason stuff going on here. Top secondary units in the NFL per Ben Lindsay of Pro Football Focus. Number 1, the Denver Broncos. Number 2, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 3, the Cleveland Browns. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills. Number 5, the New England Patriots. And got to say, it looks pretty good to see the Broncos on top here with Justin Simmons. And I know that the Broncos have a pretty, I don't know. I guess I'll go to you real quick because I know we're at our hour now. But what do you think of this list? Is this reflect you as well? Also, shout out to the AFC. Top 5 here. All AFC teams. AFC is looking pretty good this year. Yeah,
I don't know enough about everybody else's roster, but let's throw it back to last Tuesday when we were talking about one of the questions was which coach could be on the rise up for a promotion. There's a reason why I picked out a third-year coach that's coaching the secondary. This is why. When you're looking at him and you're going to have the number 1 secondary, and if you can get those guys to mesh, you spent a lot of money, invested a lot of draft capital. That's all right. You still have to get those guys to perform. And the secondary coach is a young guy, and if you can finish, this is where it starts. Top secondary unit in June. If this is the same thing next February, your secondary coach is going to be on the list for some promotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just kind of the nature of it. I do want to say I probably would put the Ravens number 1. On paper, the Broncos look like the best, but you are talking about a team that might have 3 new cornerbacks starting in a complicated defense that's very dependent on unspoken communication and guys reading the same thing. It might be a little bit, there might be some ups and downs early on for that Broncos secondary, just because, Kyle Fuller, Patrick Surtain, Ronald Darby, all brand new, all guys that they're working through right now to get chemistry and whatnot. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time for them. But that's the reason I'd probably put the Ravens number 1. I'd also probably drop the Browns down a spot as well for that same reason, just given how new that secondary is, even though I like a lot what they've done in that back 7. But man, this is good to see for the Broncos on paper. And
I don't know if he did the rest of them, but I'd probably have the Falcons DFL. So I'd probably have them 32.
Oh, man, not great. Although I really like AJ Terrell. I think he's
but he's still young, super young, and you got a journeyman and a rookie. They're going to be next to him on at safety, and then maybe a corner. It's big question marks. Again, that's why Julio won it out. Wasn't a win now team. People are saying, they're drafting Kyle Pitts. It's a win now move. It was ridiculous. So anyway, move on.
But this is good to see. Really, I don't really have any. The questions for the Broncos secondary on paper are ones that are, you can't really do much about it. You just have to let it play out. Does Ronald Darby and Bryce Callahan, can they stay healthy? Who knows, right? Like we'll find out. The Broncos depth in the secondary. They drafted Caden Stearns. They drafted Jamar Johnson. Can one of those guys develop to be the Broncos' 3rd safety this year and be the guy or one of those guys replace Kareem Jackson in 2022? Don't know yet. But I really like this Broncos secondary, the way it's shaping up. It does look like one of the best units in the league. They empowered Vic Fangio. This team will probably go as far as the quarterback takes them. It's just the reality of it. Outside the quarterback position, everything else, all the other questions are more about long-term issues, I guess, outside of right tackle. Right tackle, if I can't imagine what the right tackle discourse would be if the Broncos had a great known quarterback, because it would probably get ugly and repetitive, kind of like it was there for Bulls there for a bit. But that's the reality of it. So guys, I think that's going to have to do it for us today, unless any other super chats came in while we were talking about that. I don't see any, but thank you everybody for joining us today for another episode of Broncos for Breakfast. Oh, I should click on it. There it goes. Broncos for Breakfast. We're coming at you guys live every single Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. We'll be back again next Tuesday as well. Same time, same place. Hopefully you guys will join us. You can find us both on Twitter, Scott at Scout Kennedy and myself at Nick Kendell MHH over on Twitter. Please go follow us, give us a shout out, ask us a question. If we didn't get to something in the comment section here, by God, we'll get to you in our Twitter message. It'll be a one-on-one conversation. You don't even have to super chat. It'll be a good time. But also follow us at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. If you guys are joining us on Facebook today, please click those thumbs up. We're at 23 right now. I did grow up a Bulls fan, so if it stays at 23, I won't be that upset. That's my first sports memory, honestly, is Pippen was my favorite, honestly. If you guys are joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe, like, and share. That can do us a heck of a lot of good. It costs nothing, and it helps us a lot. Also, if you're liking and subscribing and sharing to Mile High Huddle, please also go over to Scott's YouTube page at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. I'm going to drop it in the comment section here as well. So you guys just have to click on that, and that'll be great to get on out of here. Oh, and we got Air Mason double dipping today with the bug. Oh, man. I feel like I know that show, his picture. Is that Teen Titans? Let me know, Air Mason. Let us know in the comment section. Let us know on Twitter. It looks like Teen Titans. Air Mason 14 coming in best podcast. Well, we really appreciate that, Air Mason. Jeremy also coming in here saying, love this show. Thanks for another good one, boys. EJ saying, great show, guys. Smash the like button. Listen to EJ, guys. Smash that like button on the way out. Mo Ron saying, thank you for the show. Have a great day. Peter Middleton saying, thanks, Nick. And thanks to Scott as well. We got Steven Barr coming in here. Also, Steven, good to see you. Coming in saying, great show, guys. Is Beast Boy. See, I knew it. I feel like my cousins loved that show when I was growing up, so I recognize that one. Also, speaking of recognition, I want to shout out to all of our super chats today, and stars and super stickers, et cetera, et cetera. Mohammed Badri coming in twice. Gary Leeds Palmer with the stars. Peter Middleton in the house. Reese Scott also. Broncos 17-0. TD Randall, Air Mason twice, Based Gase. We appreciate all you guys who dropped the showing us some financial love, some financial support to keep us going as well. And Scott, what do you got going the rest of the day? What's new in Georgia?
Baseball practice. It's baseball season here, so baseball practice tonight, and trying to dodge the thunderstorms. It could be a little rainy today, and then getting ready for another baseball weekend. And someone made a comment, I need to change my background at the beach. It's not a bad idea. I'll probably be at the beach in 2 weeks, so and we'll figure out if we can do something, if we can do that, or if we're gonna have to put it on hiatus for a week, or if you're just gonna have to replace me. Hopefully, I can get my spot back when I'm out on IR for a week.
Scott, I think that the show is doing well enough right now. The engagement has been pretty high. The super chats are coming in, not only good sized super chats, but a lot of different ones as well. We're diversifying the portfolio of the supers. So I think we'll keep you around. I think I've been enjoying the show, and it seems like the comment section, the community has been responding as well.
This is a fun group. This is a fun group. I don't know. I see some people talk that the evening after people finish their days, it can get a little chippy. That's my mom's favorite word. She hates it, actually. It can get a little chippy, but this is a good group. So I appreciate the talk, and I learn as much from y'all as hopefully I can bring some perspective. So I'm really enjoying doing this show.
And Jeremy's saying it's a weird world when you can get paid in stickers.
Jeremy, you have kids yet? I mean, come on now. If you haven't had kids, you can pay kids off in imaginary gold stars, let alone stickers. Jeez.
I was gonna say, those scratch and sniff stickers when I was in preschool, that was currency, right? Like the grape ones, everybody those were worth like $100 bill if you get the grape scratch and sniff sticker. But we appreciate you guys. I'm gonna try to climb to a fire lookout this weekend. They're taking one down, one of the historic ones. They're airlifting it out by helicopter, so it's only going to be there for another 2 weeks. And it's got a lot of route finding and dangerous snow travel, but God bless. I feel alive doing that stuff. So hopefully I'll get out there and stay safe. But hopefully you guys all stay safe as well. We love you all. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. And don't forget to join tonight as well for Chad and Zach for Huddle Up podcast as well. I don't want to say the time because they are not always consistent when they go live, but they'll be on tonight. You guys stay safe. We'll see you soon, and go Broncos.